we are live. Give that a second to catch up.
Well, I'm getting an ad for mini wheat cereal, so it looks like that's a good sign.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're good. All right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Hylian Gamescast. I believe episode 161. Today we have our good friend Joe as a guest. You may know him from Disney. And Daniel is here joining us again. How great is that? We're going to be talking about Metroid because Daniel said he loved the back and forth discussion Joe and I had during the Smash Bros. Stream. And
yeah, because I missed out on that one.
You did. Where were you? What was going on?
I was busy doing being a dad related stuff, so
okay.
My bad. Right. yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, and then
okay.
we're going
I beat Jesse at a separate night.
Oh yeah,
so
did.
It all works out.
Did you end up ever playing Sean?
No, I had some issues with my old laptop that I used. It ended up tearing up, and I had just recently got a new one a couple of weeks ago.
He probably would have beaten the pants off of you.
I wouldn't say probably. There was, I think I've mentioned it previously, but there was a time when he was playing against us. It was like a whole community live stream thing, and he did not lose once, and we played for at least 2 or 3
not
hours.
Not a single person.
Yeah.
Could take him
I'm trying to remember where we were at. Me and him, we did a convention. I want to say we were in Salt Lake City or maybe SAC Anime in Sacramento, but they were having a Smash Brothers like tournament over there. And so again, mind you, I'm more of a casual fan than he is. He's much more competitive than I am. But it's like, yeah, let's go check it out. So like in between like autograph signings, we went in and over there, and it was pretty cool, like fun. I didn't make it out of the first round, but he made it like several rounds deep and all that stuff. So again, he's pretty hardcore when it comes to his Smash Bros.
Yeah.
But you did make it out of the first round against Jesse.
I did. So I can hold that over his head.
Yeah.
And the other thing we're going to talk about is a little bit of what we hope to see at Nintendo's next big direct at this June, since it's not officially a bit of E3, but we are planning on talking a little bit about some past E3 adventures, I guess, and then we'll go into Daniel has a tier list that he cooked up that should be fun. So,
yes.
At the end, we will take in some questions from you guys. The guy speaking sounds like adult Gohan. Okay, then.
Is that a compliment? I want to say it is, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah, adult Gohan. Yeah, I think it's a good voice.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, Gohan's cool.
Yeah. Who doesn't love Gohan?
I think that was meant for Joe. So yeah.
I'm guessing so.
So the most recent Metroid Dread we talked about on a previous episode of the podcast. It recently surpassed the original Metroid Prime in terms of sales, which is mostly looked at as one of the most successful Metroid games. So what were your overall thoughts on Metroid Dread, Joe?
I loved it. I mean, it reminded me why I fell in love with the series to begin with. And I'm of the school of like, dude, 2D, 3D Metroid, I don't care. Just give me any Metroid I want. Like, please, I don't care how you do it. If we're going to do it like old side-scrolling classic style, or if we're going to do something like Metroid Prime, I don't care. I'm game for it all. So, and I loved it, man. I think we've talked about this before, you, Daniel, talking about like being a dad and like missing out on things. It's really hard for me to be able to sit down and play a game start to finish, not because I can't, it's because of my schedule, like my life. And I know that I have this really bad habit about myself where it's like, okay, now that I have kids, like being able to dedicate 7, 8, 9, 10, however many hours there is in the day to like playing a game, it's like almost impossible when you have kids and diapers and bottles and all of that stuff. So when I picked up Metroid Dread, like I I like made it a priority. Like I forced myself to play it, and much to the chagrin of like some of my friends, who like I'll normally like play Smash Brothers with, where it's like, nope, 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 sorry guys, this is Metroid Dread time, you know, and they're like, no, come on, like Smash. I was like, no, Metroid Dread. And so it was great just being able to play it. You know, it's such that, you know, with the gameplay and the mechanics where, you know, you can pick it up if you're a longtime fan of the series. And even with some of the tweaks and some of the little innovations that they've done with the gameplay and the mechanics, you'll be able to pick it up like that. And also inversely, if you're relatively brand new to the series, it's also still very, I'd like to think, and I could be wrong, but I'd like to think that it's still pretty friendly to be able to pick up and kind of, you know, get into it. What do you think?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I'll say like the dad thing we talked about. I think one of the reason like Breath of the Wild, for example, appealed to me is because there's a lot of things like, unlike prior Zelda games where you have like these lengthy, like hour-and-a-half long dungeons, you know, you can get things like in bite sizes. Whenever you can squeeze in a few minutes here and there, right? And
exactly.
Yeah, but Dread absolutely is like well, the gaming gets easier the older your kids get. I'll say that much as well. My son's he's 9 now, and so you know, like he can, you know, he'll be off playing Minecraft or something, and I'm like, okay, well now's my chance to squeeze in some gaming. So it gets easier there for sure. But yeah, no, it's a phenomenal game start to finish, and the accessibility is for sure. I think they're more so than some of the classic Metroid games. I think if you've played the old games, like you'll get more out of the story and stuff because you have context for certain things.
I agree.
But like a lot of people still, I was seeing like jump into it and they're like, this is my first Metroid game, and they were totally immersed. They were loving it, and it's as a longtime fan, it's like almost awesome to see so many new people jumping into the series as well. But it's just polished. Like that's like the best way I can describe Dread. It's polished.
I'm a little bit sad because I never got a chance to play the latest release of Samus Returns, Metroid 2, when they released it on the 3DS. If you remember, it was kind of at the tail end of the 3DS's lifespan.
Yeah.
And so me, with my like relatively brand new Switch, I'm thinking, okay, when are we going to get the port? Like, it's coming any day now, right? Like, you know, the 3DS is pretty much done for. Like, can we just get it on a Switch? Like, you know, virtual console, like whatever, just like it. Come on, guys. Like, really?
Yeah.
And it just never happened. And I was really sad. Although I did have the fortune of playing the original Metroid 2 back when it was on the Game Boy. Like, that's how ancient I am. So like I got a chance to play it, but I was also very relieved that the same team that had worked on Metroid Return or Samus Returns came back, and they worked on Metroid Dread and all that, and they had incorporated a lot of the mechanics, like as far as like the counter and everything. So it was like, okay, that's great. And those things absolutely serve the game very, very well. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very, very friendly to you know, beginners as well as people that had played the series since day one.
Yeah,
Oh, exactly.
I completely
Jesse, sorry.
no. I completely agree with both of you. I bought Metroid Dread actually for my little brother who had never played a Metroid type game before. He mostly just plays through Zelda, Mario, and a few other things. But I didn't know if Metroid Dread would be easy or hard for him because I remembered playing. Was it the third one on Super Nintendo?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Super Metroid.
Yeah,
Super
the
Metroid.
all-time greatest.
That is probably my favorite of the series. Damned if Metroid Dread doesn't come pretty close.
Oh yeah.
If not, I mean, they're like neck and neck as far as I'm concerned. And it's funny, you know, kind of going back to the mechanics and everything. Like some of those boss fights towards the end. Not that I'm going to spoil anything, you know, plot points wise, but like I'm sure you guys know some of the timing as far as the counters and like you know, everything where it's like. I've been playing Metroid games since I was like 5 or 6, and like the timing and the mechanics, like this is difficult for me, and I'm like a grown ass man. Like, imagine if you're
Totally.
like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, like getting the timing down and like the execution that needs to be like just perfect delivery. So I mean, again, it's super challenging, like no doubt about it. And then they ended up doing that update just recently where it's like that super hardcore mode.
Oh yeah.
Where like that one hit kills, which is just absolutely insane when you think about it. Like, you know, a game that is what 8 to 10 hours or so.
Yeah, I can attest to the insanity of it, because
Yeah.
I live streamed it, and I played it on dread mode.
Oh my god.
And I did get through it and I beat it, but I think I had a death counter going, and I think I surpassed like 200 deaths on that playthrough.
Oh my god.
Like, it was brutal. And that final boss especially, it's like my hands were just sweating.
Yeah.
It was brutal. It was
Yeah.
brutal. But I did it, and that's my bragging rights. So
No, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
bragging rights. I think I earned that one. So
Yeah, so that was the thing that I liked, was that it wasn't as challenging as Super Metroid was, or at least from what I remember of Super Metroid. I don't play through all the games every year or month like Daniel does, but I do remember it being challenging, so I was kind of iffy on getting it, but I knew it was still going to be a great game, or at least I hoped it was. So when I bought it for him, I was surprised that he was able to actually get through a pretty good chunk of the game without too much trouble. And
Wow.
yeah, I think the way that the levels in Metroid are, to where like you need to get an item and go back and solve something or whatever. There's a lot of backtracking and stuff built into the different levels.
Yeah.
And I think where he was used to playing through a bunch of the different Zelda games, and sometimes you have to do that on those. So I think that may have been like a tutorial of sorts for him to get through it, because even with Metroid Prime as well, there was it has a bit more similarities, I would say, since the whole 3D thing. And what was it? With the way that the game looks, I love that it is in the same style and everything as like a normal 2D Metroid game. But then when you do some of those counters and some of the other cutscenes or just scenes in the game, the camera will kind of swoop around and it'll go in 3D, and it gives a new perspective on Samus and the level and the enemies and everything, and it's pretty good. Yeah. So that's my thoughts. What is I can't believe I forgot the name. The robot thing that's always chasing you around.
Oh,
Emmy. Oh,
Emmy, yeah.
Emmy, yes.
Oh
yeah,
my
they are.
god.
They get the blood pumping.
Emmy is like so terrifying. I never got a chance to play the most recent Resident Evil. You know, like where like Mr. X comes out and like just terrorizes you throughout the game. But for me, Emmy was my Mr. X that just absolutely terrifies you, and like you said, gets the blood pumping. And like I felt so accomplished when I killed Emmy the first time, where I was like, okay, thank God I don't have to go through that again. Come to find out, there's like 6 or 7 more Emmys that I need to defeat, and each one gets progressively harder. So it's like, oh crap. But again, those are the little things that make the game so interesting. Like, gosh, I mean, yes, you're probably gonna die several hundred times playing this game, but man, it makes you feel something, and it, like you said, it gets the heart racing, and you know, you get that excitement and all of that stuff, and it's just, you know, for the $40 or $50 that I spent on it, absolutely worth it 1,000 times over.
That's awesome. Yeah. I always feel like one of the sort of weird gameplay things that one of my friends, they call Kayla, who's usually here, she says I'm a gaming masochist, but I always say, like, and this applies to the Emmy especially, there's a certain satisfaction through suffering. That's what I always say. Like, you suffer in a game, and something's really brutal and difficult, but then once you get past it, once you blow the Emmy's head off with a giant laser, there's nothing more satisfying.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And Yeah, so they got to make you hurt a little bit first, but then once you get through that, then suddenly it's like, oh,
you
payoff.
gotta earn
Big
it,
payoff.
man. You've gotta
Yeah.
earn it, and it's it is not an easy game by any stretch. And so yeah, you absolutely earn that ending. You earn everything in a Metroid game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Jesse, it's funny you mentioned about like your brother playing Zelda first before like jumping into Metroid. Is I always say like Zelda games will have sort of like your overworld and then like your dungeons. They're like two separate things. Your overworld's like a hub, Hyrule Field or whatever, and then you go into the dungeons from there. But Metroid kind of like blurs the lines between those two things a lot. But I do feel like almost like it's very like Zelda dungeon, but like on a much larger scale. Like if the whole game was one big dungeon, like that's also like 5 or 6 dungeons, but they're all connected together as one dungeon. That's always how I feel like playing through a Metroid game.
Dungeon.
Yeah. Metroid
but I mean,
exactly.
that's the fun of it. I mean, like with the game,
that's great.
Like a Zelda or a game like Metroid, like so much of the fun is that exploration, is like figuring out what the next challenge is and like how can I better use these weapons and these power-ups that I have, and how can I overcome everything. And like again, it's immersion is what it is, and it's the best kind of immersion, just kind of getting lost in what you're doing.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Joe, actually, because when I recall watching your guys' Smash live stream, you mentioned that you hadn't quite got 100% on the game because there were some tricky Shine Spark puzzles and stuff.
Yes.
Did you manage to get through some of those? Or
no?
No. Oh,
and I made it a point to go back and try and get all the last missiles, power up, like power bombs, like energy tanks, like reserve tanks. I want to say for the game, I'm probably 97 or 98%. I think the only thing that I'm missing are maybe 2, maybe 3 items here or there. And there are some really, really tricky ones. And I'm sure the ones where you have to like run, slide, and then you have to like, it's basically, what is it? The Shine Spark?
Yeah.
Where again, like, and some of those are just like, how can anybody do this? Like, this is insane. And like, I gave up in frustration. And then like, even after that, like I went and watched videos and like, how does anybody do this? This is unreal. Like, yeah.
The timing has to be so precise. With some of those. Yeah.
Right, so
it's tricky. It's tricky.
I actually delayed beating the game by maybe an additional week because again, like, and like when you get to like maybe the final area, that final boss, like the story is winding down, like, okay, we're at the end right now. Do I have all my missiles? Do I have all my energy tanks? Do I have all my reserve tanks? Do I have all my bombs? Like everything. And it's like, you know what? I don't want to end the game just yet. I want to prolong this feeling as much as possible. So let me backtrack and try and get all those things, like explore those last little nooks and crannies, on the map as much as you can. And I went back and like, again, my goal was to get 100%. And just those last 2 or 3 items were just so aggravating. Like, even after watching like the videos, there's no way.
Well, thankfully, they give you way more than you actually need for that final boss.
Yes.
So should be fine getting through it. But it's tricky. It's not an easy game to 100%. Absolutely. Jesse, you were going to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to ask if you were as big of a fan of the 3D Metroid games as well.
I love them. I'm more familiar with probably Metroid Prime than 2 or 3. But I loved what they did with that series. It was a huge gamble at the time, making that transition from 2D to 3D, like especially for a platformer such as Metroid, where it's like, okay, it's its own genre. Like Metroidvania is a genre. Like other people have emulated it. So to depart from that structure that has made you so well known, it's like, oh my gosh, how do you reinvent the wheel, in a sense? But I have fond memories of playing the original Metroid Prime on GameCube, and I loved it, man. I thought it was really, really well done. Absolutely loved it. And so it shows that, yes, a 3D Metroid can be done, and not just done, but done extremely well. You know, I'm looking forward to what goes on with Metroid Prime 4. I'm sad as a gamer and as a Metroid fan that they basically had to go back to start and start all over from scratch. But if it makes for a better gaming experience, then so be it, you know. And you know, I'm like, I think everybody else, you know, willing to wait an additional what are we on, like 4, maybe 5 years now? How long has it been?
I think they restarted in 2019. Maybe I'm wrong about that, or maybe it was 20. Yeah, I think I have to look it up. But it's something like that. It's been too long though.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, just to restart development.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up actually.
I actually have it right here. So it was announced at, well, they showed the trailer. I don't know if you can call that showing the game, but at E3, not the trailer, but the title I meant. At E3 2017, and then they restarted it in early 2019. At the time,
it was 2019.
Yeah, I remember at the time hoping that hopefully, it was just the direction they were taking the game that Nintendo wasn't that big of a fan of, but the character models and everything else and gameplay mechanics were good. That way they didn't have to completely start over. But as long as it's been taking, it seems like it may have completely started over from scratch with new models or art style or whatever. So
yeah, there's, you know, you got to respect them for it though, because I don't think of any other gaming companies would be so out in the open about doing something like that, like being like, okay, you know what, we've been working on this game for a couple of years, it's just not shaping up, sorry, we're still working on it, but we're just, you know, gonna throw everything we've got out because it's not meeting our standards. Yeah. And you think about like some of the shovelware that some other companies just like churn out. And yeah, it's just like you got to respect the integrity.
Absolutely.
Like the artistic integrity there for doing that. Could not have been an easy move to pull the plug on it, on the progress they had already made. So
yeah, especially if you consider all of the money that for paying the salaries for each of the developers, whether it's 10, 20, 30 people, however many, all that money just goes away. But yeah, it sucks, but hopefully.
And it's funny when you think about it, because you know, when you look at all of the Nintendo properties, you know, between Zelda and, you know, Kirby, Mario, you know, so on and so forth, I feel like Metroid isn't as beloved as, like, you know, a Zelda or a Mario or Kirby or anything like that, or a Star Fox maybe. You know, it doesn't have as... I'm not saying that it doesn't have the appeal, because I think it does. But again, when you look at, like, you know, some of the plushes and the toys, and, you know, even look at Nintendo World as far as like what they have available there for guests and all that stuff, like, we need some more Metroid representation.
Yeah, I'm hoping Metroid Dread selling so well, and I think even Samus Returns on the 3DS sold particularly well, and Nintendo seemed to have some faith in it as they released a Metroid-themed 3DS alongside of it, so hopefully we'll see some stuff later on in the future. Like, I know so. I'm hoping Daniel would get excited if they had like a Metroid area at the Nintendo.
What?
I'm sure you guys probably, I don't know if you read up on it, but like, it might have even been you that told me, Jesse, that like the developer for Metroid Dread basically had the game plotted out and like everything plotted out, dating back to the DS, like, you know, around the time that Metroid Fusion came out. But again, like, I guess the technology or like just something about it, like the DS just wasn't ready to handle what they had in mind from like a gameplay or mechanics point of view. And so it wasn't until the Switch came out where it's like, okay, now I can achieve my vision of this Metroid game that I originally had in mind.
Yeah.
And maybe in some respects that's what happened with Metroid Prime 4. I don't know.
Yeah, Metroid Dread, there was a couple of weeks ago, I think Daniel and we got very off topic because I don't even think we were talking about Metroid at the time.
As
and
we
ended
do.
up
Often.
doing like a whole history of that. But we looked it up just to see if I was remembering correctly or not. And I think it ended up saying that Mercury Steam, the developers of Metroid Dread and the 3DS Samus Returns, weren't the original developers for Dread. It was something that Nintendo had started and then stopped, I believe. Wasn't that it, Daniel?
Yeah, so
And then-
yeah, it was like 2004 that they were like initially planning, the plot out and stuff like that, and then yeah, they kind of like were on and off for it. But then yeah, it was initially starting development in just like in-house in Nintendo, and then eventually it got to Mercury Steam had pitched to Nintendo that they wanted to actually do a remake of Metroid Fusion
Cool.
for 3DS, and then Yoshio Sakamoto, who is the main lead on Metroid, he basically said, well, no, but you know what what Metroid game does need a remake is Metroid 2. So let's remake that one instead. And then after that finished, he was like, this is the team that we can actually make Dread happen.
Do you
then
think that they made the right choice in remaking Metroid 2, or do you think they should have gone with Metroid Fusion?
I think Metroid 2 was the right choice because Game Boy Metroid 2 on the Game Boy was it's a little mechanically clunky in this day and age. Is what I'm gonna say.
Yes, I agree what you mean. Yeah.
Fusion still holds up, I think. Like I've played Fusion recently, like leading up to when Dread was going to be released. I played through all the series, all the Metroid games, and Zero Mission was a great remake for the first game.
Yes.
And then you go from that to like Game Boy Metroid, and then to Super Metroid, which is like still flawless, and then Metroid Fusion still a smooth experience. So it's like, yeah, I can see that this really was the game that needed the remake.
Did you ever play the original Return of Samus on the Game Boy?
Not at the time that it came out, because I actually didn't have a Game Boy back then. But I would later go back to it into my adult years when I started kind of amassing my own collection of games.
I don't know how
I never
heck
beat it.
I did that game. Well, it's almost unfair to you as a gamer to play a Metroid game without any sort of a map.
Yeah.
Like now when you play a Metroid game, like, okay, you have a map, you have markers, you have like everything that you would expect. This is gonna sound like old man Joe, but back in my day when we played Metroid 2, there was no map. There was no like, and Metroid isn't really that much of a linear kind of a game. That's just like there's so much backtracking and there's so much like back and forth. And so how in the heck is anybody supposed to play a Metroid game without a map? I don't know how 7-year-old Joe did it. and was able to beat it.
I commend 7-year-old Joe because I didn't do it as an adult. So I couldn't. I don't know. I just wasn't enjoying it. And I think that I mean, there wasn't too many changes to like the game structure or story that needed to be made to remake it, but just bringing things up to speed, adding in those certain functionality as far as like maps, stuff like that.
I was watching a friend of mine play it, and like he busted out the spider ball, and I was like, "Yay, spider ball!"
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like, why can't we get some more spider ball in our lives?
Yeah, it's really weird that that's the only other time you see that, aside from Metroid 2 and then its remake, is the Prime games, but you can only go on like specific like rails that are like set tracks. And that's the only time, and the Prime games do it really well. Like the spider ball sections in those games are like super inventive and really fun. But it's like, aside from that, in other 2D games, it's just not there. And it's like, this is a really cool upgrade. Like this is a really cool ability. Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad. The spider magnet in Dread is close, but it's not quite the same, you know, because it's only against certain walls,
Yes.
as opposed to pretty much every wall. So, yeah, it's a cool upgrade though. I like that one.
All right. So before we get off the topic of Metroid, do you have any hopes for Metroid Prime 4? And recently there was also I guess there's always rumors going around about everything, but a lot of people are hoping that Metroid Prime, the original from GameCube, will be brought to Switch, or the Metroid trilogy that they released on Wii.
God, that would be something, man. If they could do that, if they, yeah, I mean, I would play the hell out of a Metroid Prime game on my Switch. Like, absolutely. Like, give me another excuse to play more Metroid, please. So yes, absolutely. Metroid Prime 4, I don't know. I don't know if I have any expectations whatsoever. I want a good game. I want good gameplay. I want great music. I want all the things that go into making a great Metroid game. I don't know. I'm curious how you guys might feel about the multiplayer factor, because we did get that in Metroid Prime 2. What did you guys feel? Because I feel like the community was kind of split, and that might be putting it nicely as far as how they felt about deathmatch multiplayer Metroid.
Right. I always feel like Metroid is something of a solitary experience. Like, that for me is part of the appeal. Is like, it's like a lonely kind of game. It's lonely, it's dangerous, it's isolating. And like, yeah, I don't know, for Prime 2, it felt very like almost done out of an obligation more than anything else. Like, they were like, well, Halo 2 is doing really well. We gotta we gotta throw in our own spin on this. So I don't know. Like, I didn't mind it. I didn't dislike it either, but I mostly just ignored it. And then I guess they got the message because then Prime 3 didn't have it, right? So
Correct.
Yeah. So it's like, it's there. It's fine. It's a fun little novelty, if anything. But and I think it's implemented well. It just doesn't have the charm that like the single player campaigns have, you know. Because those, especially Prime 2, I think is my favorite of the Prime trilogy. It's like, it used to be Prime 1 for strictly nostalgia reasons, but I recently played through them again, right? And I was like, Prime 2 is like super creative. Like, they do all this light world, dark world stuff, these like puzzles where you're hopping through portals constantly, and it's just like super creative. But yeah, the multiplayer I often forget it exists.
Yeah, well,
it's just like, it's there, it's fine.
I mean, like, and really you have to, think of yourself like, if you're 13 years old and it's like, I want to get some FPS multiplayer going on. Let's see, what do we got? Call of Duty, we've got some Halo, we've got Metroid Prime 2. Right. That's a tough sell, man. That's
a tough sell. It really is. Yeah.
I agree with making it out of almost an obligation, because around that time, I remember when Halo released and Metroid Prime released, G4 TV, if you guys remember it, they had like 4 or 5 different of their TV shows, and they each basically had episodes where most of the episode, if not the entire thing, was just them comparing the two, like which is better and which does this or which does that. And even Metroid Prime, a few of them would say like they felt it had better graphics at the time, and then of course a lot of them were more for Halo, but mostly for the multiplayer. So whenever Prime 2 came out, I think that was what Nintendo was kind of trying to go for, especially since you presume everyone wanting to play like a shooter multiplayer game on the GameCube came off of games like 007 on Nintendo 64, where that was the game during that generation that everyone played that wanted that type of game. And maybe Nintendo felt they needed something that would bring those people back to the GameCube.
That's a good point.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's just it's also kind of weird though, because it's like you basically just have 2 Samuses as well instead of other characters. It's a little weird. But yeah, I mean, if they wanted to bring like the Prime games over to Switch, they could add online multiplayer to that, and I think people could have fun with it.
There you go.
And I've said it before, those games still look pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, if they were to bring those to Switch, they don't have to do much with it. They just, you know, update a few textures here and there, maybe touch up a couple things, but otherwise just, you know, scale it up to like 1080p. They already run at 60 frames per second on the GameCube, which is technically just super impressive.
Yes.
So, like, you know, that if the 1080p 60, then you're good. It's but
there we go.
They're super good games. They've aged incredibly well considering how many other games of that era maybe haven't. So.
They would have my money, let me tell you that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, two final questions on Metroid. One, how do you feel about Metroid Pinball or Metroid Prime Pinball or Federation Force, the two black sheep of the family? And the second is with the Metroid Prime trilogy, didn't they go back and they added the Wii controls to the games? The previous games?
Did they?
They did when they released the trilogy on Wii, they added the pointer controls into the other two, and it actually works super well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
it was cool.
With the Switch, obviously it has motion controls, but it also has traditional controls as well. Kind of like something they did with Skyward Sword, where you have the option to sort of play with both. So if you played it, would you rather play it with the traditional controls or the Switch controls, to where I assume for some people it would have better accuracy?
Oh man, that's tough. I feel like I can make a go of it with the Switch controls. You know, and I'd be game, because I remember playing Metroid Prime 3 and, you know, doing the whole nunchuck and, you know, using the grappling hook and everything like that. So it's like I was willing to adapt and give it a try. And I'm willing to take whatever it is that they have to throw at me. So if you know, if I gotta, you know, do it, I'll do it. Yeah. As far as Metroid Prime Pinball, I played very little of it. A buddy of mine had it when when we were kids, and I got a chance to see it, and I don't know if I really got it. Like, okay, it's pinball, it's Metroid Pinball. Okay, sure.
Right.
I like pinball as much as the next person, and I love Metroid, didn't really get me. Yeah,
I never played it. So
I mean, the little that I did play of it, kind of the same with Federation Force, where it was like, okay, all right. I was at a point in time where it didn't catch my attention or my love. So sorry to anybody out there that might like those games.
All the Federation Force stands are coming at you now. All the pinball lovers.
Yeah.
No, I never played either of those. Actually, they're my blind spots in the franchise.
Yeah.
But I kind of I love the premise of, you know, a game that follows like side characters like that in Metroid, and you see glimpses of Samus doing heroic stuff or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But you got the side story going. I love the universe building like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, I saw the game I just never felt compelled to like go and buy it. Yeah. So.
I feel bad because getting ready to play Metroid Dread, I wanted to go and play Metroid Fusion, and I'm sure, like everybody else discovered, it's almost impossible to do that. You know, like old cartridges for the DS were going for, no, not even DS. It was Game Boy Advance, GBA.
Yeah.
Those like copies of that were going for like 150 a pop. Mm-hmm. Like it was like.
Yeah, I was telling people because I still have my Wii U. So on the Wii U eShop, it was like $8, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like pricing it out and looking online. I was like, it's in some markets, it's cheaper to buy a Wii U secondhand and then buy Metroid Fusion on the Wii U eShop than it is to buy a Game Boy Advance card of the game, because that's
is
how
the Wii U eShop
overpriced.
still up? I thought it was down. I thought it's gone.
Down as of like 2 days ago. Yeah.
Oh no! So I can't even get Metroid. I can't get my Fusion on.
I think I've seen people say that there's a workaround, like the shop still works, you just can't add money to it. But if you like have your Nintendo account on like your Wii U and like your Switch linked, you can add money on the Switch and then go back to the Wii U and download it. It's like super convoluted.
That's too much work.
It's really convoluted. But yeah. I loaded up on like classic games on there because of that. It's like, okay, this eShop's gonna go away, and there's some GBA games that are really hard to find, like Fusion and Zero Mission, even Zelda, the Minish Cap. Yes, a bunch of games like that are a bunch of Fire Emblem games that were on Game Boy Advance. So yeah, it was a great thing. But I mean, the Wii U is like 11 years old now, almost, or 12, or no, 10 years old. Sorry. So I get it.
Yeah.
Underperforming console that's a decade old, but still, it's like, yeah.
Can we get a release on the Switch? A virtual console. Yeah. Anybody, please?
Yeah.
That would be lovely.
That would be great. Put on Switch Online.
There
you go.
Please.
Yeah. I mean, Metroid 1 and Super Metroid are on there, but I would rather play Zero Mission over Metroid 1.
Well, and again, there's no reason why we... Well, yes, I know what you mean, because as great and nostalgic as I am for the original Metroid, again, if you're picking up the game for the first time, you're going to want to play Zero Mission. Zero Mission is just so much more user-friendly, for a first-time player. And also, like, it also expands on the story. I mean, you want to talk about universe building. Zero Mission does that, probably better than some of the other games out there, and yeah. So,
and speaking of getting the blood pumping, like the enemies, you got that whole section near the end where you're out of your suit and you're being chased, and that gets the blood going.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great. I beat the original Metroid like one time just to say that I've done it, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do that again.
The original Metroid.
Yeah, I beat it one time, and I was like, that's it. I think I'm good.
Did you or did you not use the Justin Bailey code?
I did not.
Okay.
No, I just did it. But I think I did use some save states because it was on. I played it through like attempted to a number of times, but the first time I actually beat it was on the mini NES, the NES Classic Edition. So I used some save states. When I get to like what felt like logical checkpoints. So you could go to an elevator. It's like a logical checkpoint. So I just create a save state there, that kind of thing, right?
Isn't that insane that game didn't have any like actual like honest to goodness save points?
It's pretty wild because like the technology existed. You could save in Zelda on the NES.
Yes.
So, I don't know. It's
from what I remember, I think it was because you had to put like a little tiny battery in the cartridge.
Yes, that's right.
And I guess they were already so expensive to make the cartridges that they didn't. Because if you sell 1 million copies of a game, and even if a battery is like 50 cents each, that's $500,000 that you're spending on that battery, which 50 cents for one person doesn't really mean anything when you're already paying like 50, 60, or however many dollars they were back at the time. But for Nintendo, when they have to pay like $500,000 to get all these batteries and then pay for the shipping, and then have someone just take the time to put a single battery into each cartridge or however they were made, I imagine that cost would add up, and they're just like, no, they can tough it out.
They'll just put password save. It actually does have a save system like Zelda in Japan though, but just not overseas.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny because then like there's like a file select screen. It looks almost exactly like the Zelda one for Metroid on the Famicom, which is like really interesting. Yeah, but just we weren't so lucky in the other hemisphere over here. So
did you guys ever find out what the deal was with the Justin Bailey code? Like what the story was behind that?
I I
can
at
look
least
that up
used to
really
know
quick.
it, but I don't remember.
I want to say it was like a developer by that name or something like that. That like
I think it was, yeah, who just like snuck it in. Or something. Yeah. There's a few codes for it, I think, actually, but that's like the most notorious one is the Justin Bailey one. Yeah.
It says Justin Bailey refers to a well-known password in Metroid and is also used by fans to refer to the magenta leotard Samus Aran wears upon using this password. It may have first been referenced in Nintendo Power. Where did it come from? Arm cannon, blah blah blah, various suit. There's no Japanese version. Use the mentioned password instead. Comes from the password Justin Bailey, which allows along with the password. It's not saying where it came from. Legacy due to the removed password in later games. This is bonus.
the world may never know.
We never know. Someone named Justin Bailey's out there laughing and
Yeah.
and somehow in notoriety and obscurity all at once.
Yes.
So, but I think if my last name was Bailey, which it's not, but if it was, I would name my kid Justin and just see who gets it.
It reminds me of like you mentioned, if they just like named it after a random person. In Nintendo
Right.
Power, I think it was in Nintendo Power, Nintendo had a contest to get a secret room and a Link to the Past named after you, and that one person
Right.
won.
The
And
Chris
That's
Houlihan
cool.
room.
yeah. So it's just
Yeah.
like isn't it a hole that you drop into and then it's just filled with rupees?
Sort. It's like a fail-safe room, basically. So yeah, like if something happens, if you manage to commit some bug and the game doesn't know where to like load Link in when you like go through a door or drop in a hole or something, then it defaults to this spare room basically, just so that the game doesn't crash. And then yeah, it's just a room full of rupees basically. But yeah, it's the Chris Houlihan room, and it's there's like a little message on the wall, and if you read it, it's like, my name's Chris Houlihan. This is my secret room. It's a secret to everybody because they have to throw the line in there. And then yeah, but it's just totally like this weird fail-safe that
That's
actually
cool.
serves no other purpose.
So this says,
and I've only triggered it one time ever, despite many attempts to get back to it. Yeah.
found the part that mentions Justin Bailey. It says Justin Bailey was originally thought to be one of the creators of the game, but no such name appears in the game credits. It was also stated that the Justin Bailey code was a reference to an English or Australian term for a bathing suit. Bathing suits were, according to this rumor, referred to as Baileys, so Justin Bailey would more accurately be rendered as Just in Bailey,
Justin.
which is what Samus appears to wear when the code is used. I guess that kind of makes sense. If not, then it's a good coincidence.
Very cheeky.
Yeah,
That
so
is cheeky.
are we ready to move on from the Metroid topic?
Yeah, we talked
I'm sure you
Metroid
guys
for-
could go on for another hour about it.
I'm sure we could.
Yeah, so the other topic that I wanted to talk about is the potential for the big Nintendo Direct next month in June. Usually they have it for E3, but sadly E3 is canceled, but they are having a Summer Games Fest by the same people that do the Video Game Awards to kind of replace or be a substitute for E3, at least this year. It'll be interesting to see next year if they both happen and people could go to both, and if they're both in June, how would that work out? But yeah, it's an interesting thing to see what they're doing, see how it goes. But with Nintendo, they usually have their Nintendo Directs, their video presentations. Ever since like the Wii U was released, they've kind of been doing them on their own outside instead of doing the live conferences that they used to do. So with the Nintendo Direct, what are some things that you are hoping to see, or even if not just from Nintendo, if you are looking forward to any PlayStation or Xbox or third-party games that may have potential of being announced, what are you looking forward to for Nintendo or just E3? I'm just going to say E3. We know it's not E3, but I'm going to say it's E3.
Oh gosh. I mean, I think we talked about, maybe some updates for Metroid Prime 4. I mean, I not to be redundant, or bring things back to Metroid, but talking about that. Again, maybe some Metroid remakes or something like that. Maybe we'll get that. Um, you know, uh, Metroid Fusion remake or something like that. That would be very cool. As far as the Zelda world is concerned, maybe some Wind Waker love. I would be open to some Wind Waker. They would get my money. I have nothing but fond memories for Wind Waker. So why not? Why not go there? I don't know. What do you think? What are you in the mood for?
Yeah, I'm hoping that Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, one of the two, is shown off. I have this contradiction in my mind. It's like the left side of my brain's arguing with the right side, to where part of me feels like Twilight Princess would be the one to release first because I feel like it would do better, and I don't see them releasing it as like a collection or at the exact same time or anything. So I feel like they would rather put Twilight Princess on the Switch first, but at the same time, I don't think they would release Twilight Princess before they would Wind Waker, because it just feels like Wind Waker has to be first because that's just the way that it happened.
Right. It would be like doing Majora's Mask before Ocarina, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just like not right.
What if we got a Toon Link collection where it was like Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and like Spirit Tracks, like. I'm just pulling that out, like just off the top of my head right now.
That would be amazing. There's a lot of people that I know that would love that. I even have one of my friends put together. It was just like a little, basically 2-second demo. You just run around one level, but just to see how it would work, he was experimenting with like porting it over and doing his own little mod to it, to where you could play it on PC and you could use traditional controls with it, and it felt really good. But there wasn't any enemies or anything like that rendered in it. It was just like running around and the movements and stuff. So from that, it seems like it would do really well. I would like to see it made in if they did the DS games at least. I would want it to be similar to, I was gonna say Metroid Dread, where it's like the 2D perspective, but then it can kind of turn 3D. But maybe Link's Awakening would be, or A Link Between Worlds would be a better example.
Mm-hmm.
Because even A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS, it's fully rendered 3D models, but it's from that same 2D perspective, and then sometimes the camera angle will drop down. So maybe they could do character models and stuff like that. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, actually, because you bring up Link's Awakening, like, that felt so out of left field when they announced that. Like, of all games, Link's Awakening, like I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm buying it, love it, great. And it's basically that Switch version fixed every issue I had with the Game Boy original, which mostly boiled down to the Game Boy does not have enough buttons for what this game is trying to do. And now, okay, the game is able to do these things because there's enough buttons to have your sword and your boots and a shield out at the same time. But yeah, so with something as out of left field as that, like, I feel like games like Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks are not off the table. And like a lot of people cite the controls being like a reason why it couldn't. They'll be like, well, the controls are like this touch controls, they're really unique. To which I say, well, Skyward Sword worked, right? That was like all motion controls. And when you boil it down, like, those touch controls are really just inputs. It's just a different way of doing inputs.
Yeah.
But all the actions that Link does in those games are still actions he does in other Zelda games. So like, just translating those inputs to actions, you just replace the touch controls with buttons, and you're like, it totally can work, I think. But yeah, I mean, like, I would be down. I'll buy Wind Waker for a third time. I'll get it from GameCube to Wii U to Switch. Like, it's yeah, I'll do it. I'm down. It's such a great game, and I think all three of those are a little underrated. I think, like, people have come around on Wind Waker lately. Like, when it came out, there was
the soundtrack to that game is just so beautiful. Like, it's just so perfect. And again, I have nothing but like very, very fond memories, like as like, I want to say 13 or 14-year-old Joe, however old I was, and just playing that game and exploring the map and sailing all over and, you know, going and meeting the Gorons again, you know, and it's like, you know, I still remember that soundtrack of what it was like. And again, if you would have told, you know, 15, 16-year-old Joe that I would end up being a Goron myself, I would never in a million years believe you. And it's just, like the emotional connection that I have with that game versus maybe some of the other Zelda games in the series, it runs just a little deeper, I think, than some of the other ones. Like, as much as I love Ocarina of Time, and I do love Ocarina of Time, and it's one of my all-time favorites, Wind Waker just really does hold a special place in my heart.
I love that. I love that. It is a special game. Like, it's I played through it again recently, I think last year, and also it shows how time goes by, because I say recently, and I'm like, no, that was a year ago. But it almost feels like, in many ways, a proto Breath of the Wild, because it feels like the game that was ready to shift away from Zelda traditions in so many ways. You know, I mean, like, they literally drown Hyrule in that game. They're like, just like, it's wonderful. It is a really special game, I think. Sorry, you were going to say something though.
No, I mean, it really experimented with the open world concept. You know, it took what worked in Ocarina of Time, you know, as much as you can do open world in with the N64, and I mean, it takes it to a whole nother level. And you know, just that free exploration and something about sailing the seas, and you know, again, I freaking loved it, man. Like, the art style was such a departure, and I know that like many fans were very, very polarized at that time. But for its time and place, it just works beautifully.
And it's like we were saying with Prime, like, that's a game that's aged well too.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part of that art style. But like, I remember when it came out, I was skeptical until I started playing it, and it was just like, okay, I don't care about that it looks different than these N64 or these games I love. Like this, and the art style's aged very gracefully, I think. And again, they won't have to do much with it to port it over to Switch, because they already like upgraded it to HD for Wii U.
Yes.
And again, like, there's very little they'd have to do to move it over to Switch. They could just again, maybe up the frame rate a little bit. There's a couple visual stutters here and there if you're sailing too fast. But yeah, I mean, like, all the things they added to the HD version as well, like the faster sail, which makes a big difference. Those changes pack a punch, and so it'd be really great. Absolutely, I'd be down for that. Jesse, you've been quiet through this, but you just made a video recently about Wind Waker.
Yeah, it was it was a suggestion someone had, and it was if I could pick 10 changes that Wind Waker HD could get coming to the Switch, what would I do to change it to make it better for it or whatever? So yeah, I guess Joe, you have to leave soon. Do we want to get to the questions? I don't know if we would have time for the list thing that Daniel put together for the Gorons. But
I'm not too worried about that. Was mostly to fill the time if we like ran short on topics, but we did not. So we're good.
Yeah, I guess we can start the mailbag real quick for the next few minutes. So anyone in the chat who has any questions, go ahead and ask them. This is your time to ask us just about anything.
This will be fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
There are a couple of questions that I have that I'll go look for really quick while we're waiting on those. But in the meantime, what have you been playing any other games lately outside of Metroid and Smash Bros? Or
gosh, I got into some WarioWare when it came out, and I was playing that again. You know, not to sound like a broken record, but like with the way that my life is, I need like very short, quick, and to the point games. I don't want to say ADD type games, but again, like for me, Tetris 99 is perfect as a father. Where, you know, if I got to go change a diaper, I'm in and out. I can do a round of Tetris 99 real quick and easy. Friday the 13th, the game, I played the hell out of that when my kids were born, which is a very weird game to play when you have a newborn child. But again, something about 20-minute rounds, just kind of easy, kind of get in, get out. And WarioWare is definitely one of those, like, you can just pick it up and leave and just come in and come out. And to me, those are the types of games, unfortunately, with the way that my life is right now, that I seem to do best with. And I know I'm missing out on a lot of really, really good, you know, 8, 10, 20-hour games where, you know, like really deep lore and like a really great narrative and you know, something like rich in story and character. And I feel bad from a certain perspective.
All right. Do we have anything for? Okay, so Kevin in the chat says, "What's your favorite voice line you recorded for Zelda?" So through Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity, what is there one that sticks out that you enjoyed or have seen? I know we asked before, but maybe it's changed since then, or maybe this person wasn't here for that one.
Gosh, I'll give it two. For Breath of the Wild, it was probably you know, great job, little guy, you know, getting that laugh, that bolsterous laugh. And believe it or not, I want to say those lines, you know, that and like Daruk's protection, like those lines were like maybe on the last day of recording. And so I felt like at that time, vocally and character wise, we had the character pretty dialed in as far as like who he was and what he was about and just the placement and the timing and the delivery and everything. So, you know, I would say those, you know, that series was one of my favorites. As far as Age of Calamity goes, it was great getting a chance to explore a little bit more of some of the fighting and the combat, you know, that we didn't get a chance to do with Daruk in Breath of the Wild. I think in that moment, that cutscene where we're talking about, you know, prime rock roast or you know, I'm trying to remember what it was again, but it was. Yeah, where they're like Daruk is basically having a barbecue with Link, and you know Zelda's watching from afar, and you know I'm trying to get him to eat some prime rock roast, which was always I you know laughed when I was.
That is super funny seeing Link just trying to bite into this thing as well, and
yes,
yeah, and Daruk's just cheering him on. It's great. That is a good one.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you want to pick the next question if you can find one, or if there's one in the mailbag?
Bonnie asked in the chat, "Who is your favorite WarioWare character?"
I mean, Wario. I know that I don't want that to come as such a cop out, but again, I main Wario on Smash. I really do love the character, and as much as Mario and Luigi themselves are very endearing, there is something I love about Wario because of how evil and fat and greedy he is. There's just I love the character, and again playing him, you know, he's like one of my mains in Smash, where again, you know, his move set is just so unorthodox. And like, not that he's like overpowered, because he's not overpowered in that sense, but again, his move set is just like, I'll play friends, and when I bust out the motorcycle, they're not seeing that coming. Like they're like, what? He has a motorcycle? Like that, it throws them off. Like being able to bite and eat characters and heal yourself, you know, is a lot of fun. Being able to fart on them. I think I killed you. I finished one of our matches with a fart. So again, like to me, that's just fun. Like I have fun with that. Like, you know, is he the most overpowered character in the game? No. Is he the strongest? No, but damn it, I have fun playing with him. So, yes, Wario.
I love that answer.
All right.
And it's also relatable. I'm not the strongest or most powerful, but I have fun too. So.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so for those wondering, Joe and I did a Smash competition against each other. It was best of 10 or something, and he did beat me with a fart once. So, so the final question, and after this, you can let people know about. I don't know if it's new that you've been working on or at, but you have the thing with Disney that people can go check out if they're in the area. But
yeah,
Envy here says, "Hey Joe. Fellow SoCal civilian here, SoCal represent, laugh out loud. If you could pick something to bring back in the newer Zelda games, what would you personally want to see that you think should be in them?" The thing I see all the time is just traditional dungeon from past games.
Gosh, that's tough. I mean, we haven't seen a grappling hook in a while.
Oh yeah,
that's an oldie but a goodie, so that's what comes to my mind.
Yeah, grappling hook would be amazing. That was one of the things that everyone wanted in the original.
They say there's no wrong answer, but I think that is the right answer.
Yeah, or a fishing pole.
Yeah.
I always say a fishing pole.
Yeah, fishing's always fun.
Breath of the Wild has more water, rivers, lakes, oceans than any other Zelda game, but it's the one that you can't fish in. What's up with that?
And then you could fish, and then you could go cook it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta wonder though, when you say grappling hook, are you thinking like Wind Waker's grappling hook, where you gotta throw the rope and then you can climb it, or like the more traditional like hook shot, where it's like the chain and you pull?
Hook shot.
Or both maybe.
Hook shot. Hook shot. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hook shot all the way, man. And maybe, I don't know how they do it, but maybe try to incorporate like, or maybe do an update to like Link's crossbow training or something like that, or like, I don't know. I feel like that is a game that is almost lost to time in the entire Zelda like canon, is like Link's crossbow training. I still have mine, by the way. Like, I held on to that, perfectly in box, like with the game itself. But yeah, if there's any way that we can get some love for Link's crossbow training, please, please, please.
All right. So yeah, earlier before we started, we were joking around about your people being able to hear your voice at some Disney attractions.
Yeah, I do character voices over at Disney California Adventure. So come on over to Turtle Talk with Crush. That's a really, really fun show. Talk to Crush the Sea Turtle. It's a lot of fun. Trying to think of like other things that I got going on right now. There's a little show that's on YouTube called Heroes of Gujitsu. And it's apparently like it coincides with a toy line that you can find in Target. Like it's kind of a throwback to the old 80s days where you would release a cartoon and a toy series at the same time, because that's what people love.
G.I. Joe and all of them.
Yes. And so Heroes of Gujitsu is like a total, just kind of, that throwback 80s classic cheese, good guys, bad guys, and the toys themselves are very like Stretch Armstrong-y, where you can play with them. But it's crazy, man. The toys themselves, I want to say, originate from Australia. Like, it's an Australian company that produces the toys as well as the animation. And like, you look on YouTube and the views are like 1, 2, 3, 4, how many million views. And if you go into like your local Target, you can usually find some of those toys. So yeah, it's really cool to be attached to that franchise. And I think we have an episode that just released just recently, and we're working on some more pretty soon. I also teach voiceover classes too. I've been doing that lately, and that's been really, really rewarding and very cool. Kind of paying it forward. I remember what it was like when I was breaking into the business and, taking some of my first classes. So it's been really cool to be able to connect on that level. I'm going to be doing a convention appearance in Fresno. I want to say it's June 11th over in Fresno, Anime Fusion. I'll be appearing over there alongside some other fellow voice actors and actresses. So yeah, come check us out if you're in the Central Valley of California in Fresno. Come say hi. We'll be there. Yeah.
All right, and I'll have a link. After we finish up, I'll put a link to the YouTube video when I find it in the description, along with some links to like your Twitter and stuff like that, so people can go check out more stuff from you there, or
please, yes,
check out the new episode that just released. So
awesome.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Joe. I hope you had a good time. Always
of
great.
course, anytime. Always happy to come on and shoot the breeze with you guys. It's always a lot of fun, and talking video games, talking Zelda, talking Metroid, whatever. Like yeah, always a pleasure.
All right, awesome.
Awesome.
Daniel, I guess, would you like to stay on, answer a couple more questions with people while Joe heads out? All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a nice night, Joe.
See you guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Anytime. Bye.
Bye. Hey, look, it's just us.
And then there were two.
All right, so, yeah, we will stay here for a few more minutes to answer some final questions before we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a good one. About an hour and 20 minutes, I assume it'll be. Do you see any questions, Daniel?
Questions. Let me have a look in the Discord. That's the word.
Also, a little news story that I thought was interesting was, so Nintendo has been talking a bit about, I cut this one out earlier because I didn't think we'd really have time. But
right.
While you're looking for questions, just really quick. So Nintendo's been having the interviews or announcements where they were talking about being worried about their successor. And Reggie had a big statement that he put out. But he said that, I believe first, this is just one of the quotes because there's 4 paragraphs, but I'm going to go through it real quick. I might make a longer video on it later on. He says, I believe that first and foremost, you need to be thinking about the content and what's going to be the content pipeline to keep players engaged. I do think you have to look at it at history. It looked like an L, sorry. And what are some of the historical tactics that work to maintain a life cycle of a particular generation? And that includes everything from mid-cycle upgrades to looking at how you think about pricing and value. There are a number of different tactics you can play, and fundamentally, the content pipeline needs to be there, which I think is something that the Wii U was lacking when it first launched. In the first several months of it. And even, I think it was the PlayStation 4, maybe it was the PlayStation 5. There's a lot of complaints that there weren't too many good PlayStation exclusives for those consoles.
Yeah, makes sense. No, I think that's valid. As as great your console can be as great as it is, but if there's nothing to play on it, then like who cares, right? Like content is king, right? You gotta have the right games out. So yeah. I did find a question here. It comes from 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗍 in the Discord. Based on the video you made, Jesse, on the possible updates to Twilight Princess HD for Switch, how many of them do you think might be possible given how long we are assuming they worked on this Switch port for? Some of the smaller tweaks sure will make it in, but how about larger updates? Your thoughts?
How long has it been since? This is me basing it off Tantalus being the one who does it. And that has been like a year. It'll be like a year and a half, I guess.
Yeah, this summer we'll because it came out last summer, Skyward Sword HD. So let's assume if they were working on that out the gate after Skyward Sword release, then Yeah, you go first. Maybe. What do you realistically? What updates do you realistically think they would bring? Not much. I really think that Nintendo's gonna. I think Nintendo is a little they're strict with their IPs to a certain degree, right? I don't think they want to add too much that's going to differentiate it from the original game, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. Especially after the sort of mixed sort of receptions of Majora's Mask. I can see them trimming out tedious stuff, like they already did with like the Tears of Light stuff is trimmed down from like in each section it used to be 16, now it's 12. So they just trim a little bit out here and there. But as far as like giving everything higher poly models and stuff like that goes, I just feel like as much as I would rather they do that, I feel like Nintendo won't let them.
The interview I read, which was weird because it seems like there was conflicting quotes from the guy who runs Tantalus and then one of the artists who worked on redrawing and coloring the textures to make them look better, where he said that they did start working on higher polygon stuff and everything, but then Nintendo felt that it would take too long and they wanted to get it out by a certain day. So they told them to basically just use what was there already and not take the time to update it, but I guess rather make these changes instead. And the artist said that from the beginning, Nintendo was only letting them do the textures and stuff. So maybe the higher polygon models was part of, because there are the interviews where they said they essentially had to beg Nintendo to work on the game because they spent so many months trying to convince them. So maybe the higher polygon models were the things that they did to try and impress Nintendo enough to be like, look, we can do this. Look what we've done within the past month or whatever. So maybe that could have been what he was referring to, but yeah. So I don't think they got very. I wouldn't imagine they got very far with like all the higher polygon models. Like maybe like Ōrdon Village and a little bit of Hyrule Field or something like that. And I don't think they would spend as much time as it would take to completely redo all of that. But one of the things that they would have to replace is the Miiverse. What idea would you have to replace Miiverse, or would you just completely take it out and not put anything in?
Like I played with it off. I honestly think I don't need it. Personally, I think it works better for Wind Waker than Twilight Princess, the Miiverse integration, because Wind Waker is like there's sort of something novel about the whole like message in a bottle thing that you can't do in Twilight Princess, and so I don't know, like it just felt like it was kind of just there's no need for it. I don't know, like, and I would worry about like if you could leave messages for people in dungeons or whatever, that people are just gonna like spoil the puzzles or spoil the dungeon experience for other people, stuff like that. So, and I think that that's a game that has a lot of like twists and turns and stuff like that. The thing I could see them doing maybe is trimming some of the tutorial stuff, because like seems to be like some of the stuff is they sort of do actually bother with is like trimming tedious stuff. And let's be honest, Twilight Princess is a great game. The tutorial section at the beginning, very tedious. Just we don't need to herd goats twice. Maybe just once. Like, there's so yeah, I don't know. I think, or even just give you like the option to skip it. That kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I wonder if they could give you an option at the beginning that's like, is this your first time playing or no? And if it's your first time playing, you go through all the tutorial stuff. And if it's not, they have like a more streamlined section in Ōrdon Village that you go through that's like trimmed down. That could be interesting. But like Skyward Sword even trimmed out a bunch of tutorial stuff in the HD version. So yeah, that's really the most likely thing I could see them actually doing. But Miiverse, stuff like that, like, well, Miiverse is dead, but like a Miiverse equivalent, I don't see much point for it, to be honest. Not for Zelda, at least. Yeah.
All right. You can have a final question. I have my final question while you look for yours. So if anyone wants to hurry and comment something that they want answered, go ahead. But this one comes from Joe on the Nintendo Direct plans video or predictions video that I made, which was 10 things.
Just to clarify, not the Joe that was just
not
chatting. Different Joe, everybody.
Different Joe.
Yeah.
It says, you've talked about companies would deny rumors that turned out to be true later, like Tantalus and Skyward Sword HD. Based on your experience and companies in general, about how many denied rumors were actually false compared to those that turned out to be true? There's like the Miyamoto 3DS thing. There's Nintendo.
I mean, I'm
talking
sure
about Skyward Sword and Majora's Mask.
There's so many rumors go around constantly. There's going to be countless that are false.
Yeah.
Right.
But can you?
But
think
I
of
mean,
any
I
that
think our
they
main
specifically
idea
did deny that they actually.
There was one recently, but I can't remember what it was. But they even like posted about it on like Twitter or something, which is like really rare. Like they like never. Oh, it was Switch Pro. They were like, "There's no Switch Pro." Like they came out on Twitter, or I think it was essentially like there was all these Switch Pro rumors, and they were like, "We have no plans for the Switch Pro in this release window," or something like that. And it's like that was true. So
yeah, if anything, I think it would be
like
more of a Switch 2.
I think so too.
If it does keep the name.
But like, to clarify, like when we talk about like Nintendo lying and stuff, we're never saying that like, oh, anytime Nintendo says no, they actually mean yes. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that no doesn't always mean no in this case when we're talking about stuff like this, just to clarify. It just means nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean yes or no.
When we come out and say that we believe that they're saying no, but that's just because they don't want to announce it yet. That's usually based off of past history as well as research on what companies or developers may or may not be doing or have had the time to be doing. And with Skyward Sword, to me, I always felt that was like a really, really obvious thing. But with Twilight Princess, that could be a thing that actually ends up being a no. But we weren't saying that it was coming out, but with everyone saying that, like, oh, Nintendo or Tantalus denied Twilight Princess, whatever, they blah, 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 it just reminded me of the whole Skyward Sword situation. But the game I was thinking of was Mother 3. Where everyone
that's a good
asking for it, and I think a few times
there
were rumors. But Nintendo, that was one of the things that Nintendo came out and said no to, and
here we are, still no Mother 3, so
yeah,
that's a good point. That is a good one.
I can even think of the opposite, where they said something was coming out and it never did.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like the 𝗟𝗏 thing comes to mind, or Zelda Gaiden, or whatever, the disc drive,
right,
in America,
right. Yeah, good point.
Do you have your final question?
Yeah, this one comes from Natsu. Actually, I hope we haven't answered. I don't think we've answered this one already.
Who's Natsu?
But do you think people might be setting themselves up for a slight disappointment with Breath of the Wild 2? Have we already answered this one? I think we did, actually.
Read it again?
I think we answered it last week. The question was, do you think people might be setting themselves up for a slight disappointment with Breath of the Wild 2? After all the years of speculating and theories, there might be a lot of people that are too hyped for things that might not happen. By no means do I think this will be a bad game. I just think there's a strong possibility of overhypeness. I think we did answer this or touch on this last week.
I'm gonna
think of it.
I'm gonna just accept that you're right because I don't remember.
All right, no, fair enough. Well, we'll just get into it again. But even Natsu saying in the chat that we answered last week. Oops, my bad. Sorry, but I do think it's always a possibility. What about which question?
Kevin. He has a
If you could
fun,
do
simple
food
one.
from any Zelda game, what would you all pick? That one? That's a good one.
Yeah, I suppose.
What would you pick, Jesse?
Oh, I'm going first? Oh,
Yeah.
man. If it's a food from Breath of the Wild, do you get the effects as well?
I mean, it would stand to reason, yeah. that you would.
Okay. So I have two.
Okay.
Skyward Sword has an entire. Actually, I think it's the only restaurant they have is based entirely around their pumpkin soup.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never had pumpkin soup, but I imagine for there to only be like, I imagine someone had the idea to build a second restaurant, and he went to get the loan, and the bank was just like, but why? Why would we need a second restaurant? We already have the pumpkin place. Like, no, you're going to lose money. Just don't do it. The other thing would be the 𝗙𝗵𝗲 milk, because I would love to have infinite energy.
That's fair.
And I imagine it also probably tastes really well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I've had pumpkin soup in real life, and it is good.
Okay.
It is good. Not good enough that you should build the entirety of your food industry around it, but still superbly good.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's tricky. Like, there's a lot of games to cover. A lot of food in these games.
There's a really nice follow-up to that.
I mean, 𝗙𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗏 is basically just like super milk, right? It just sounds weird to say. Yeah, Kevin, do you think Skyloft pumpkin soup would be better than Ordon pumpkin soup? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll tell you, the soup that the Yeti makes in Snow Peak Ruins in Twilight Princess is not a soup I would want, because it's basically fish, pumpkin, and cheese soup. It just doesn't sound like a good combo.
Can you put that in Breath of the Wild?
Probably.
Do we have cheese? We don't have cheese.
If you make pumpkin soup in Breath of the Wild, it gives you extra defense. So that's got to be good, right?
That makes sense, because Skyloft is full of weird things, and your pets turn into monsters.
That's also true. So there's something about pumpkins are they're just real good for you, I guess.
Yeah. So what would you pick?
Yeah. I don't know. There's so
originally
just suggest Breath of the Wild, and there's so many food options.
Yeah.
Mighty Banana. Yeah, there you go. Just the Mighty Banana.
What if like the Yiga didn't leave the Sheikah? They just like those bananas were just so good they all became addicted, like that one guy in the I forgot the name of it, but the guy with the mushroom problem.
Yeah, and he's like near one of the he's at one of the stables. Yeah, and he's like addicted to mushrooms.
Yeah, I
to the rush rooms.
It was a situation like that, to where they all just became addicted to the Mighty Bananas, and the rest of the Sheikah was like, "You need help. Let's go."
That was what caused them to splinter off.
They're like, "Let's go have a talk," and they're like, "I don't have a problem. You have a problem," and then it's just like civil war.
A big problem for me with a lot of Zelda food is that most of it's not cooked with any like seasoning, or like there is salt in the game, but most meals you're not going to bother using salt for when you're actually cooking it. And so like a lot of the food's actually going to be pretty bland. Just putting that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no seasoning or spices or
peppers. There are
peppers. That's true.
But that's not really the same.
Not really. So it's it's tricky. I might just stick to You know what, actually? So someone said monster cake. You can make a fruit cake in Breath of the Wild. And I always think that looks really good. So maybe that's my answer. I want that fruit cake. It's yummy.
Nice.
And it's dessert as well.
All right,
there you go.
You
Jesse
teased something earlier with Midna. What's up with that?
I have a video coming out tomorrow about Midna.
You don't say.
So, yeah, it's gonna be good. Go check that out. Go subscribe to 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗀. Link is in the description. Yeah, all of my social medias are in the description. So if you want to hear me talk about Zelda stuff, feel free to give my channel a perusal. But yeah, I do have a video that's going to drop tomorrow morning. It's all about it because I have a little series going aside from my usual dungeon series called Zelda Character Study, and it's all about character development and stuff like that, and insights into characters. And I think it's about time that Midna got the examination she deserves, because she's just one of the best characters in the whole series. So that's coming out tomorrow morning. Yes. That's me.
A really great idea for a series. Have you thought about doing one for 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏?
I've already done 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go. There you go.
And it's available now for people to watch?
It is. He's on the loose. Actually, I said 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏 is in the bag, but it's not true. He's on the loose. He's out there.
All right. Is there anything else that people could check out from you, or that you want to mention? Maybe you next stream.
Say maybe if you want to watch a stream about a Zelda, or maybe you want to watch 40 videos about Zelda dungeons, then you can go to my channel and watch many of those things, all of them. I have an ongoing series where I'm breaking down Zelda dungeons. I'm a little bit in between games with that, as it were, just because some of these videos take a long time to produce. I'm a one-man show. I do my best, but I have a big catalog of what I like to call evergreen content, and that I don't really do news, right, on my channel. So, all of that content, if you haven't seen it, none of it should be dated. You can go back and watch it and love it, or not. It's your life, though. So that's me. That's what I do. That's what I make. What about you, Jesse? Tell us about you.
I remember the days when we used to do evergreen content on this channel, and it did really well, and then I just got tired of it, I guess. But I had fun doing them. When I used to do the Zelda theories, they still get decent views, and obviously some of our most popular videos were the top 5 canceled games.
That's right.
We did.
Those were good videos.
Yeah, I think those were some of the first that we both worked on together as well.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah, so everything with me is Game Over Jesse. As Daniel said, links to everything are in the comments below. I'll try to put everything for Joe in the comments, or not the comments, I'm sorry, the description below. And I have a link to his YouTube series that he's on, as well as his Twitter, so you can find out a lot more stuff with him. And yeah, I guess that's it. I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast and hearing from Joe again. Sadly, Tubes and Geek were not here, but all of their links are also in the description if you want to give them a follow.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Have a great night.
Thanks for watching, everybody.